Welcome to Planet Subaru, one of the largest Subaru showrooms in the world, and the first powered entirely by the sun. Today we're introducing the Subaru Outback Wilderness. 2022 is the first model year of this model. Brought a couple down so you could see the contrast in colors and the way that the visual appeal of the Wilderness model varies by color selection. And then I also parked next to them an Outback XT Onyx edition. And the reason I did that is because they're very similar models. The Onyx came out in 2020 when there was no Wilderness, so this was the most off-roady of the Outbacks at the time. And still they have a lot of features in common, and we'll talk about that. The Onyx and the Wilderness share a 2.4 liter turbocharged, direct injected boxer engine, and the engines in both generate 260 horsepower because it's the same engine. What's interesting though is that the fuel economy on the Onyx is better at 26 combined than the Wilderness at 24 combined. And the reason is that the gearing is different on the Wilderness. The 0 to 60 time is less for the Wilderness too, as you would imagine. It's 5.8 seconds to 60 instead of 6.3 for the Onyx. Also affecting the fuel economy on the Wilderness is these all-terrain tires, which obviously have a higher rolling resistance. You can see the deep tread there on those, and of course you're going to get a little more noise on the highway. It's not bad, but compared to the Onyx, which is quiet as a tune with regular, more performance-oriented tires, you're going to hear those Wilderness tires a little bit more. Also, because of the additional height of the Wilderness, it has a 9.5-inch ground clearance instead of the 8.7 in the Outback Onyx edition. Because of that, you get a bigger frontal area, which increases the drag coefficient slightly. It's pretty obvious that the Wilderness is designed for some pretty serious off-roading. Approach angle, breakover, and rear departure angle are all over 20 degrees. And they put a lot more cladding on the Wilderness. You can see like the additional plastic above the wheel wells and some additional molding there at the lower doors compared to the Onyx. Obviously Subaru is anticipating that the Wilderness drivers are going to subject the cars to a little more pain. Also the front fascia is different. You can see the different shape of the moldings there, and that's try to pull in the edges to reduce exposure to obstacles in the case of the Onyx. Fog lights are a different design and honeycomb look. I'll try to show you down low too. You can see the skid plate on the Wilderness, which is not part of the Onyx package. Probably the most distinctive visual feature is this new anti-glare sticker, standard on the Wilderness, not available on the Onyx. Lots of unique details on the Wilderness too, which separate it from other Outbacks. You get unique badging. The coloring on the mirrors is more of a matte finish instead of that shiny piano black on the Onyx. And then of course you have these, what Subaru calls copper details all over the car. Of course it's in the text on the badging, and we're going to find it inside too, but it looks to me, it's more of an orange yellowish in bright sunlight, but I guess you could call that copper. In the Outback Onyx and Wilderness, you get a full-size spare tire. That's not only full diameter, which you get in any Outback, but also full width. And I think the idea was that Subaru thought that the Onyx and the Wilderness are more likely to find themselves in environments where it would be difficult to get a tow truck. So these are the only two models that you can get the full-size spare as standard. And doesn't matter which one you choose, you get it both ways. Looking now at the Wilderness, a similarity between the Onyx and the Wilderness is this Subaru StarTex interior. It's animal friendly, so it's synthetic, not made out of any skin, but it actually has a pretty similar texture to leather, but it really has the advantages of a synthetic material in terms of durability and waterproofness, while maintaining that sort of upscale appearance that you associate with leather. It's got a nice soft touch on it. The pattern's a little different on the Wilderness. You might see kind of like a golf ball pebbling in it, and then I'll go over to the Wilderness so you can see, the Onyx, so you can see the difference. Now looking at the Onyx, you can see more of just a leather grain finish to it, and different stitching. They use a green stitching throughout the Onyx for accent. There are some unique interior details that the Wilderness has. You can see this fabric trim badge on the front doors. The stitching on the Wilderness is this copper color instead of that green you saw on the Onyx. And you get those copper accents also like on the steering wheel and the shift knob. When you start the car up too, you get a Wilderness badge on the instrument cluster that appears illuminated. So obviously the handling is going to be a little different between the Wilderness and the Onyx. The Wilderness is a little taller. The suspension has more travel in it, and it's got those big sidewalled all-terrain tires, which are optimized a little more for off-road rather than on-road performance. So if you add all that up, obviously the skid pad performance on the Onyx edition you would expect to be better, and it is. You get a 0.78 G performance out of the XT and a slightly reduced 0.74 on the Wilderness. They do feel different on the road. I think the Wilderness actually has a smoother ride just because of that extra travel in the suspension, but of course you're going to feel the roll a little bit more in the corners. So it really depends on the kind of driving you're going to do. If you're never going to take either one of them off-road, you're probably better off with the Onyx, because it's just going to give you a sportier feel. But if you're going to go off-road, obviously the Wilderness was built for that. Both the Wilderness and the Onyx edition have a dual function X mode. And X mode is Subaru's traction control software that mimics a low range like you'd shift into in a more truck-based SUV. And it's a pretty neat function. I've used it. And it definitely gives you more capability in the most treacherous of conditions than you would have with just the normal all-wheel drive system. Subaru says they've upgraded and retuned the X mode on the Wilderness package. So again, suggesting that if you're going to do the hardest off-road service, you're going to want the Wilderness. The Wilderness costs about $2,000 more than the Onyx, and both the Onyx and the Wilderness are available with one package that you can choose or not choose. It comes with navigation, moonroof, and rear automatic braking. That package is a couple of $1,000s, but it's optional. We have a dedicated Outback Onyx Edition video that includes an X mode demonstration out in the woods on our channel. And if you'd like to drive the vehicles, of course you can visit us here in Hanover, Massachusetts at Planet Subaru. And if for some reason that's too far and you just like to learn more, you can do that from anywhere, planetsubaru.com, where we have all sorts of information about these models and many others. It's a wealth of information about Subaru, and I think it'll be well worth your time to visit. Thanks for watching.